Boss ignores my background and learns the FAFO lesson all idiots do. I worked as a care staff for a private company of 250-ish employees that deals with special needs individuals, mental disabilities and often physical ones. We have day-hab facilities and group homes. In a prior job, I did the same for the state, but was moved to an IT role after a while until the stupid from upper management became too great, whole other story. Before any of that I was an EMT, and before that I was in the army and know how to cover my own ass. Backstory complete. My boss sent out an email to all staff and had an in-person company meeting because I put on a form. The state inspectors look at that said, client returned from day trip sunburned, disoriented, and dehydrated. Staff with the client reported they passed out. Apparent heat exhaustion, reported to RN and state authority for possible neglect. Apparently the RN never looked at the report before the state auditors came in a week later, although she did look at the client and agreed with me about the heat exhaustion the next day when she was back in the office from a day off. Fast forward 9 days, we have an emergency company meeting. Boss hands out a paper specifically telling every staff they are not to do anything outside the scope of their job description, and they are not doctors, while staring at me the whole time. She calls me out specifically during the meeting by name. Alright, fine, I stop doing anything but the exact wording of my original hiring duties. 2 months pass. One day I get a call about a problem with the computers at the main office in San Antonio. My job is over an hour away. I had traditionally done all the IT troubleshooting, as I was one for the first hires of the company, and I had a background for it. Boss calls me on my day off and asks me to drive to the main office and fix their computer system. I said to her, I cannot do anything outside of my listed duties, per your order. Then I hang up and turn the phone off until dinner. After I turned the phone back on, I get a call within 10 minutes from the company owner. He, who had been nothing but nice to me up until now, just bluntly asks, when I felt like doing my job and getting things working, but especially payroll, don't I want to get paid tomorrow? Get your ass in gear, son. That may indeed have been the wrong way to start the conversation with someone who wasn't being paid extra for their IT problems. I referred him to the email and in-person letter boss had put out. Then I pointed out how company policy had a no firearms rule, but he specifically always carried a 1911 to all company meetings and events on his right hip, calling it out by model as a Kimber 4 inches. I then politely advised him to find a way to deal with his own problems, as the computers being bricked wasn't one of mine, but paying employees such as me was one of his, per state and federal law, and hung up. Turned my phone off again until I was at work 2 days later. In that time, apparently 3 staff had quit from failing to be paid, 18 more were threatening to, and the owner had driven over to have a chat with boss and myself. They laid out that as a senior care staff my job role had expanded over the years I was there, 5 at that point, and I countered that the pay hadn't, at all, since I had been hired. My doing IT work was a charity from me, not a job requirement, and I appreciated none of the disrespect I had gotten lately from either of them. I also pointed out that I knew full well that a contract IT company would cost them at least hundreds if not thousands for a consult, and at least $200 an hour. And if I deigned to fix their problem it would take about 3 hours. Owner offered me a 50-cent raise and 3 hours overtime. I countered with a public apology in front of all staff from boss, a $3 per hour raise, and an exemption from the no carry firearm policy he was being hypocritical about. They said no, so I said, I'll be in the back with the clients doing my job duties, and let me know when they contacted an IT company and changed their minds. Keep in mind that all the computer systems were effectively bricked at this point, so the nurses can't do any charting, no one can build time for casework, the state paperwork while largely paper can't be sent. It took them 4 days, who knows how many calls to computer specialists for quotes, and another 8 quitting employees to agree to my conditions, after 4 tries to get me to let go of the concealed carry one. That was their sticking point. I don't carry a gun at work, and never have, even though in my state it's totally legal, but it bugged me the absolute hypocrisy of the owner. So I would have given up the raise before that. In the end it turns out that the owner's wife deleted something she shouldn't have had access to, and it took all of 8 minutes to restore them from backups I personally had on an old hard drive I wasn't using that the company said were an unnecessary cost.